Just yell next time. So polite. Well, we're making a few laughs here. This is a deadly serious topic. And it's not a new topic. It has been, hello, Dave. It's been in our midst for decades. And we're finally cracking through this, and it is not easy. Good morning. Robin, good morning. It's kind of a voice of God sound here, I recognize. So what's the good news? The good news is we're in this room. The good news is we've been working pretty darn hard on this, all of us, both bilaterally as well as collectively. But the numbers, and the other piece of good news is we initiated a disparity study. We were convinced, I think we had discussions early on. I want to give Ron Rice a shout out here. Ron deserves a lot of credit, God rest his soul, for really pushing and leaning in on this. And so another reason why we were blessed to have him in our midst. But the fact of the matter is, if you look at the state procurement numbers, so let me back up and say, if we didn't do a disparity study, there was an overwhelming legal interpretation that any program we put in place would not have the constitutional support that it needed. And by the way, that's further as well to why I think we collectively want to get statutes that are passed and that I sign, as opposed to executive orders, where the next governor, if they saw this differently, could pull the rug out from under it. And that's not something we want either. So the disparity study took a lot longer than I would have liked, I think than any of us would have liked. But the good news is, at the end of the day, thanks to Janae to my right, it came across the goal line. That's the good news earlier this year. The bad news, the sobering news, is the numbers turned out about what we feared, which is low, maybe some cases mid-single-digit percentage participation by minority, women, veteran-owned businesses, compared to what I think is, at least in the neighborhood, a gold standard, which we've been saying as far back as on the campaign trail, in my case, in 2016 and 17, New York, which is low 30s, 30, 31%, as I recall. That's where we need to be. And I'm not suggesting we should stop there either, but let's get there, and then we can figure out how we go from there. There are a bunch of pieces of legislation out there. I don't know that we necessarily need to get into each one of them piece by piece, but there's a handful that I know we've been deeply, in fact, there's more than a handful, but some of the ones I know that have been front burner are establishing goals, establishing an office of supplier diversity, having the concept of sheltered markets where you've got almost a safe harbor, adjusting the contracting limits, and then I know some that just go at technical changes that we need to make. So that's a handful of a lot more than I think that are out there. But again, I think at the end of the day, this has been and needs to continue to be a team effort, and it needs to end with legislation that you all take leadership on, and that at the end of the day I pass. And sooner is better than later, obviously. Again, I don't want to diminish the good news. The study is done. As sobering as the results were, they are the foundation upon which we can build what we need to build, and as quickly as possible get to the levels that we want to get to. So with that, I just figured I'd go around and ask some folks some questions, but don't be bashful, as I know you all well enough to know that I don't need to say that. One of the things that I think I might want to just start with, and maybe Joanne and Michelle, respectively, from Treasury and the EDA, is we've not been sitting on our hands. So absent legislation, we have been working already to try to get to a better place. And I wonder, Joanne, maybe if you could start, and then maybe quickly flip to Michelle just to give folks a sense of what we have been doing in the absence yet of legislation. And again, I want to thank everybody for coming. I know you've all got plenty of other things you could do. We're represented by an array of chambers, our team, a lot of incredible legislators, and one of the great faith leaders I know in my life in this state. So, Joanne, maybe you and then Michelle.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you, Governor Murphy, and to everyone here for attending today's event. Treasurer Moyo is disappointed she could not be here in person, but I'm happy to participate on her behalf. I'd also like to acknowledge two other Treasury team members who have worked tirelessly in this space. Hester Agadosi, who was appointed by the governor as the state's first Chief Diversity Officer and who established the Office of Diversity and Inclusion in the Department of Treasury, and Candy Sofanzo, who also could not be here today, and she assumed the Chief Diversity Officer position in October of 2022. And that position, we mentioned Senator Rice, that was created via legislation sponsored by Senator Rice, and it's an honor for us to be here and to be part of these continued efforts to build a more equitable public contracting process for diverse businesses across New Jersey. It was clearly understood from day one that increasing contracting opportunities for diverse businesses would be a top priority of this administration. In fact, during the Treasurer's first meeting with advisors, she asked for guidance regarding what tools we had at our disposal and what tools we needed to acquire, such as a disparity study, to make meaningful progress. One of our first opportunities to connect diverse and local businesses directly to contracting was Treasury's $225 million construction project to build the new Department of Health and Department of Taxation buildings here in Treasury. Treasury and NJEDA, thank you, Michelle, and your team, we hosted two networking events for entrepreneurs to meet directly with the two prime contractors. That was Turcon and Turner Construction, two of the largest contractors in the country. And the events were so successful that both contractors requested a third event to take place in March of 2020, which unfortunately had to be canceled for obvious reasons for COVID. At least two local businesses, a woman-owned public relations firm and a minority-owned data wiring company, received contracts directly from these events. And according to our friends at EDA, 26% of construction contracts for the Department of Health building and 39% for the Division of Taxation were awarded to small minority and veteran-owned businesses. It's a good example of the importance of partnerships and bringing resources and opportunities directly to the vendor community. And I'd also like to say that Turcon and Turner classified businesses from that event, even if they didn't work on those projects, for future events and private and public work that they did. We held the first ever state summit designed to connect diverse businesses with contracting opportunities across state agencies and authorities, and over 1,200 businesses attended, and that was held at NJIT. We partnered with the Supplier Diversity Development Council, known as the SDDC, to host a minority, women, and veteran-owned business summit and virtual marketplace and matchmaking event. 75 public and private sector companies presented to over 800 businesses at that event. We organized contracting opportunity event for small minority-owned businesses for this building, $280 million State House construction project as well. And talking about the need to streamline the barriers and the actual process of doing business with the state and the red tape, we streamlined the process for certifying small diverse businesses, waived all certification fees, and created a series of instructional videos to help the applicants navigate the process. We've partnered with the Veterans Chamber extensively and to conduct extensive training to nearly 70 state agencies regarding the SDVOB set-aside law and the reporting requirements. We supported the legislation that reduced the threshold of certified businesses from 3 to 2. Basically, you needed at least 3 businesses in a certain commodity code to unleash or trigger that set-aside. We reduced it to 2, and I'm working hard to certify businesses so we can meet that threshold going forward.
Try to wrap your head over.
Yep. Okay, I will wrap it up. Basically, I just would like to probably talk about the partnerships we've had. We worked with the African American Chamber. In fact, John Harmon was the speaker at our first event with the contractors. But some of the partnerships we've had was with Essex, Mercer, and Camden counties, Rutgers University, Montclair University. We work with the New Jersey Business Action Center, the small New Jersey Business Development Centers, Puerto Rican Commission, New Jersey Hispanic Chamber of Commerce we've worked with, and we've worked with our partners in labor and the Associated Construction Contractors of New Jersey. So we look forward to continuing these collaborations with a broad range of business, community, and governmental stakeholders, and anyone around the table, including legislators, because we've been in districts and done roundtables and legislators. Just reach out to us, and we'd be happy to work directly with you and your members.
So good news is we haven't been sitting on our hands.
No.
Not the bad news, but I also don't want you to think we're going to tear our rotator cuff by patting ourselves on the back.
No.
I'm glad we've made progress. We have a lot more to go. Michelle, could you be brief on what you're seeing and what you guys are doing at the EDA? And then I'm going to ping pong back and forth. So I may go to you next, Shavonda, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Governor. Good morning, everyone. I will say that we are acutely aware of the socioeconomic challenges and the inequities facing diverse individuals in the state. We actively engage with our diverse chambers because we ensure and try to prioritize that our products, our programs, and our operations are built with socioeconomic equity in mind. And to that end, I wanted to say a bit about the development of our employees and our strategy and what Tim Sullivan, our unflinchingly loyal CEO, when I came to EDA, he charged us as an organization with prioritizing equity. You, Governor, charged us with growing our state's economy and enhancing equitable access to all New Jerseyans. And so with building our staff's competencies as it relates to DE&I, Janae and I always talk, included employees build inclusive programs. And so to that end, we put an emphasis on building our employees and their competencies. A bit of of what we've done with a culturally competent staff. For the Winport, we did conduct our own mini disparity study. We were able to do that, and we were able to set goals on that project. And now with certainty, we know that what gets measured can get done. And so with our maternal health center building, we are also applying those same diversity goals and measurements. With our African American Chamber and our Hispanic Chamber, we are very much in the, I think, 4th year of our bonding and readiness program, and has helped many businesses expand their capacity as it relates to bonding. I'd also like to mention that we are partnering with Kane University to launch the Building for Growth program, and that is a statewide initiative where we are having a lot of the agencies partner with us to offer this program. It's an educationally based program in order for our construction companies. We have a cohort of 50 construction companies, and we're going to be, looking at building their backlog, access to capital, enhancing their capacity. We are also working with Rutgers School of Business Management to develop the New Jersey Supply Chain Resiliency Dashboard and Marketplace. And that initiative is really exciting. It's an innovative platform that we are looking to have a view on the MWBE businesses in the state and, the sectors from which they occupy and the sectors that we don't. So, we realize that joining with our chambers, we have to work together as a community with them, and, our other organizations as well, because they are the key technical partners that we need in order to look at this holistically. Okay.
Michelle, thank you. Yeah. I think one of the, again, we're not trying to pat ourselves on the back, but again, want to reiterate that we haven't been sitting still. The EDA, I think, is as good an example as any part of government where when we haven't had to worry about constitutional studies or needing to get a statute that may be very complicated. I'm thinking Sustain and Serve, the Minority Women's Seed Fund.
That's right.
The equity that is embedded in the sort of broader programs like Aspire. We've been it's kind of a tale of two cities. As a state, I don't know that any other state compares to those equity initiatives, and yet we fail when it comes to diverse supplier procurements. And so that's another reason why this bothers all of us, because we've got a really good record over here. This just sticks out like a sore thumb. Siobhan, we mentioned Ron, God rest his soul. You are obviously the chair of the Legislative Black Caucus. Reactions to where we are, any quick advice you got? And obviously we're all in this together. This is the ultimate team sport because it ain't easy. It's complicated. Please, welcome.
Thank you, Governor. We keep signing up for these complicated things. But it's definitely legacy work, and I want to thank you for seeing the importance of this, following through on a campaign promise that was made to the late Senator Ron Rice. And these things are complicated. The legislators, in collaboration with our community and social justice partners, we joined forces to dismantle the broken system that has constrained businesses and denied them procurement opportunities. More equity, more economic empowerment is what we need to ensure all businesses grow. At hearings we convened by the Assembly Community Development and Women's Affairs Committee and the Joint Committee on Economic Justice and Equal Employment Empowerment, we heard directly from minority and women-owned businesses in construction, goods and services, and professional sectors. Their frustrations were palpable. The paperwork required, which we heard for state contracts, is excessive, creating bureaucratic barriers that prevent many from even entering the process. Delays in payment, forced waivers, and unnecessary costs for certifications add more burdens, and we work collectively to eradicate some of those barriers. The late Senator Ron Rice recognized these injustices decades ago. In fact, he said he didn't need a study to tell us what we already knew, but we needed the study so that we can take action.
That is so true, by the way. We knew what the study was going to tell us.
We knew it, and he would say it. So we worked together as a delegation, the African American or Black Legislative Caucus, the Latino Caucus, and our Asian Pacific Islander Caucus to come up with 12 legislative bills aimed at tearing down these barriers. It does not do all the repair that needs to happen, but it's a good start. Among these bills is the Minority and Women-Owned Business State Contractor Remedies Act, which creates a new process for awarding state contracts. Another bill, which we heard at different chamber events from our small and minority-owned businesses and women, was advanced payments for certified businesses that secure state contracts, helping them get the resources they need up front. We thank you, Governor, really, for seeing this as a challenge, for making this a legacy issue that you're willing to address, but we're determined to eradicate these disparities. Every business deserves a seat at the table. This table looks really good to me this morning. Yep. It really does. And addressing the inequities is not just our job, but it really is all of our jobs. And we believe that by sitting here today, we're going to continue to progress towards that effort. Thank you.
So well said, particularly that last point. It's not on your shoulders or yours or mine. It's on all of ours. And that's the spirit, to everyone's credit, that we've approached this. So, again, do you mind if I ping pong back and forth? John Harmon, good morning. Thank you for being here. Thanks for your leadership. Make any observations you like, but one in particular, that whether it's the stuff that Joanne and Michelle were talking about that already exists, or post-passing and signing laws, one element I'd love you to address, if you don't mind, is how do we get the word out to the members of your chamber? Good to have you. Fire away.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank you. Yeah, I'm on. I believe I'm on. Yes. I want to thank you, Governor, for convening today's meeting. And you said, yeah, the good news is that we're all here. Moreover, I thank you for the candor in which you kind of address where we currently are, but underscoring the desire that we need to move this conversation as expeditiously as possible. And the overwhelming expectations of patience that Black people have to endure is something that keeps me up at night. But to your question, we stand willing, ready, and able to disseminate information to all sectors of society, let folks know that we are attentive to this matter, and we all are committed to bringing it to some resolution. So we commit to that. We commit to being a part of these conversations and any opportunity to take a deep dive into coming up with the best practices to reset procurement in the state of New Jersey. So we are a model that would lead to some legacy proclamations, if you will.
And I'm glad you underscored the word that Shavonda led with, which is legacy. This has got to survive all of us, and it's got to look good in the rearview mirror. Getting something done that doesn't do the trick isn't sufficient. Thank you for that and for your leadership. Nellie, loved being with you yesterday. We can't talk in this building about why we were together, but I had a ball. But from the Hispanic Latino perspective, and I'll flip then for you right to Carlos, and any words of wisdom and deep thanks for your leadership as well.
Thank you so very much, Governor. Let me just say to everyone present, I'm really very happy that we're here. Obviously, I probably am dating myself, but I've been in the legislature for 28 years, and we've been talking about this for as long as we can possibly think of, and that's a very long time when you think about it. I've served with Senator Rice on the Joint Committee on Economic Justice and Equal Opportunity, and I remember wholeheartedly, and that was a bicameral committee, one that, of course, Esther was at the time the person over, she was, I guess she was the chair, co-chairs, right? It was Ron Rice and Esther back then that were the co-chairs of the committee. We had the opportunity to hear from many of the folks that we see here today. I'm especially happy to see that we are finally, and I like to say that with a pause, because I think every time that we try to get to this point, there are things that just kind of get in our way, but we cannot allow that to continue. Clearly, the disparity study that was put together, as my colleague and yourself and others have already said, we already knew what the results were going to be or what the findings were going to be. We just needed to make sure that we were able to move forward. I remember Senator Rice clearly saying that the only way that we can do this is to make sure that we have a particular office that is dedicated just for this, so that we can ensure that that individual would be the accountable person, would be able to analyze the situation, collect the data. Data was extremely important. We did not have that. We were not prepared in terms of our procurement system to be able to move and get all of those guidelines in place in order for us to do that. So simplifying and streamlining this purpose and this process was extremely important to all of us. I believe that establishing the office, as you talked about, Governor, is extremely important, and one that I wholeheartedly support, and one that we've actually been talking about and making sure to have that in place. You also mentioned the fact that there are some statute that tends to become very difficult and totally, in some cases, just unnecessary. Again, streamlining that and finding ways on how we can do it. Those are some of the top line situations. We know that there is a lot more involved, but just for brevity purposes now, if we have to talk about it, let's establish something that is going to make sure that we can directly point our fingers, directly get to the bottom of it, and disseminate information that is so greatly needed.
I love that. And by the way, just as we did with Janae, we established an office.
Yes.
And when you do that, you put focus around it, you put resources behind it, and that's, I think, the analogy here, right?
Right, absolutely.
So thank you again,
Thank you,
Senator.
sir.
Great
Thank
to have you. Carlos, any thoughts? And let me, I was going to mention this with John as well. I probably am at the risk of putting words in the mouths of the 5 chamber leaders here, but I would assume communication to your communities a few bucks that we can somehow find to help you do that probably wouldn't be a bad thing, not to lead the witness.
We
but
wouldn't turn that away, Governor.
You wouldn't turn that away. So Carlos Medina, representing as chair of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
First of all,
Great
thank
to
you,
have
Governor. Thank you for being a partner. Thank you to all the elected officials here for being partners. I know that you took on additional meetings and additional workload to help us, and it doesn't go unnoticed, you know, the passion in your eyes when we talk about this topic. So I know it's very important to everybody here. I just warn when this starts getting implemented, I don't like words like good faith. Is a word that scares me. Even New York, that has a strong program. I right now have a personal issue in my company that I won a project. I was $1 million partner. It was a $10 million project, 9 for them, 1 for us. They won with our qualifications, and for 4 years I have not been able to get work out of them. And New York is just bouncing it around from the controller's office to the diversity person. But in the meantime, I'm out in the lurch. But it's not uncommon for these firms to know how to play the game to drive the little MBs crazy. They just keep on asking for work. They give them a small portion of the project. They say, oh, we don't like this. They wait 3 months to call you back. So like everybody's saying here, an office that is able to manage that, where complaints are filtered and addressed in a timely manner. And excited about the prompt payment clause. Also, the advance payment is a great thing. So I'd just like to say the Chamber's here. We've partnered with you before. We've partnered with the EDA. We've partnered with the legislature. So consider us a strong partner. We're ready to roll up our sleeves and get this done because it's very important to our members, which are bringing great GDP to the New Jersey economy. And let's make it even greater. Let's all these diverse communities be out there bidding, which will drive down prices for the state. At the end of the day, the more bidders you have, the more competition. That's a healthy thing. We just want to be at the table bidding. Thank you.
Great point. It's not the core reason, but it is also worth saying, what you just did. This is a pro-taxpayer notion and set of bills. There's enormous high quality.
Because inevitably people are going to complain. Why are you helping John?
Sure.
Why are you helping Carlos?
Yeah.
Why do they need a leg up?
Yeah, what do you...
It's important to explain that this process is not giving anybody
Correct.
preferential dollars. It's just letting more people be able to bid.
Yeah,
So.
that's a great point. It's a cold-blooded, smart thing to do in addition to all the equity benefits and the right thing to do. Thank you very much. Coach, I promise I won't ask you anything about either the Giants or the Jets. We'll leave it at that. A touchy subject. You will chair the Economic Committee, which is a hugely important player here. Any observations you've got?
Just, for brevity's sake, just to also pay homage to Senator Rice. I had the opportunity to be a co-chair with him on the Joint Committee on Economic Justice, and it was like taking a master class, from him on, addressing things and not being afraid to speak up. And like you said, this is something that we all knew about. It's not like we're going to sit here and go, okay, and going behind my two colleagues, they've said it all, but 28 years plus of these same conversations are something that we have to address. And that's a major issue. And Shavonda, we had a press conference a month or so ago, and when you look at 0.14% of anything, you should be concerned. And when you look at the amount of money, $209 million, all these numbers are something that we should be concerned as African Americans, as Latinos, as Asians, as the women, gay and lesbian, LGBTQ community. These are things that we have to talk about. So I think many of these things we're going to get in the forefront when you talk about legislation, and some of the legislation that I've worked with my colleagues on, in the Assembly, and particularly Assemblywoman Sumter, A4721 requires Department of Treasury to update New Jersey disparity study every 5 years. Probably should be a little more than that. A4722 requires state agencies to make good faith effort to increase awarding contracts procured through advertisement and minority and women-owned businesses. A4723 modifies title and role of Chief Diversity Officer, establishes New Jersey Office of Supplier Diversity and Business Opportunities. These are just 3 of the bills, and working closely with my colleague, I think we have to address it. But as said before, this is a legacy thing. Long after we're gone, we have to make sure that, we're not sitting around the same table and our next generation, our kids, African Americans, Latinos, Asians, and LGBTQ community are sitting here saying the same things. And I think we have to put things into action. 28 plus years is way too long. But when you look at 400 plus years, it's a lot longer than even that. So it's beyond us. So realize that these inequities have gone on for not decades, but for generation after generation after generation. And we're not asking for handouts. We're asking for what we deserve as a community.
Really well said. Yeah, would be, Nellie made the sobering point about 28 years, but that would lead the witness to believe that it was only 28 years old as a problem. And we know this is centuries old, and the roots of it are centuries old. Also, Coach, you mentioned LGBTQIA plus community, which I meant to raise up front. So thank you again for your leadership. By the way, for those of you who are watching on live stream or in the back of the room, it's extraordinary, but these three people are in the same legislative district. And you talk about a district that punches above its weight. There's none better. So Sterling, don't be mad at me for saying that. Robin, great to have you representing the Women's Chamber. Would love to get reflections from your perspective. And again, thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for taking the initiative to commission the disparity study in the first place, and for working with everyone to help find some good results, solutions, I should say. Okay. So some of the things that I know that are issues are awareness, not just of the contracts, but where can our small businesses find some of the help to put the bids together. Yeah. And they also need to know how to team, because many of the businesses that I am familiar with, many of the women-owned businesses are very small, and it's not impossible to learn how to team. You just need to have somebody take the lead and then subcontracts out. But most small businesses don't really know how to do that. I also think there should be a debriefing process that's a debriefing process, so that when you don't, win, there should be a meeting to go over the bid and to find, or the proposal to show how the bidder can do better the next time. The payments, advanced payments, I think are very important. I myself have experienced, not in a contract but in grants, where the last stage payment doesn't come until after the work is done, and contractors have to be paid, subs have to be paid to do the work, and we have to be able to pull out of our own financial resources in order to meet those obligations. And so that's something that's really important. Paying somebody after the fact is I think difficult for small businesses to handle. I think those are the biggest things. And one other thing I'd like to mention, and that is that state money flows down to the counties and to municipalities. And it might be a good idea to have any contracts that involve state dollars, even if they're at the county level, to have set aside requirements. It's still money coming from a state agency going into, it's almost like a subcontract from, or a subcontract, subgrant coming from the state agency to the county or the municipality. And I think that will help improve the numbers, because most small businesses have an easier reach to the local level.
So on that last point, Lisa and Sarah, could we make sure that we're factoring that in terms of, again, this is Robin's very good point. It may be a contract distributed at the county level, but it's state dollars. Just like we do, Michelle knows this, when we have EDA dollars at work, there are certain requirements, prevailing wage is an example of one of those. This is a good example from Robin. Two other quickies in terms of reactions. I should have said this up front. I think you've all forgotten this, more about this than I know, but in your chambers, you're overwhelmingly small business. IBM is not the issue here. And your points, Robin, are well taken, which, coming back to Michelle and Joanne and Janae and yours truly, we don't need a law for this. It puts a burden, I think, hopefully a happy one, on us to continue doing workshops, whether they be in person or virtual. To your point you raised, how do you put a bid together? How do you team up with other suppliers for a particular contract? The postmortem, what just happened? That's stuff that we can do without a law being passed. And I know we do some of that, and I'm proud of what we do. I feel like we could do more. Thank you for that. Our last but not least legislator, Sterling Stanley, coming in from Middlesex County. He and I were together on Edison last week in a fairly important moment. Would love to get your perspective, Sterling, as a legislator, but specifically as well from the South Asian or more broadly AAPI community. And again, thank you.
Absolutely, Governor. First of all, let me thank you for keeping all your campaign promises. You know, from the beginning, you've told us during your campaign trail what your idea was and what you wanted to do and what you wanted to establish. And kudos to you and your team here to actually start the process prior to this disparity study being actually implemented or looked at or studied altogether. So I really want to say thank you. And you have wonderful staff. I mean, your staff members have really helped, us too, questioning us. And as far as me being...
Did they slip you any money to say that in front of the cameras?
Actually.
Just want to check that.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're helping me tonight. No, but as far as these three great colleagues of mine sitting next to me, I will never be embarrassed or never be affronted if they get all the kudos, because they have so much leadership and experience that they're wealth of resource for me, as well as you and your team. As far as what's going on within what we're doing here right now, I think what we're doing here right now today is so important that through these package of bills that we want to codify and make sure it happens, we're showing what it truly means to recognize diversity. We're showing that to recognize and celebrate diversity is not just to speak about it, but to make sure that all our communities have the ability to not only contribute to the development of our state, but to have their growth contributed to and by our state in return. In light of the study and the incredible work they've done, we've introduced a package of bills. One of the bills is 4724, which establishes a shelter market program for certain business enterprises seeking state contracts. This is something I can speak to very strongly within the Asian community. I remember going to all different businesses within the Asian community. They all want to know, how do we do business with the state? How do we, they feel there was so much red tape, so much, misinformation. So I think this will really help clear that up, This bill will leverage the crucial data distilled by the disparity study in order to allow our state's chief diversity officer to finally be able to make progress on rectifying the clear disparities that have been epidemic, to the state's procurement process by designating businesses as historically underutilized for particular public contracts so that they can finally get the chance to contribute to public work that they've always deserved. While we do not believe that these disparities are always intentional, we do believe it's time to do something to level the playing field, to ensure that the state's procurement process exists as a beacon of opportunity for all those who wish to prove themselves by providing their services to this great state. I look forward to seeing this important piece of legislation pass, and we all spoke about legacy and make sure that this is, carried forward. Yes, today is a very important day, and what you started, Governor, by introducing this disparity study and pushing this is actually the beginning, not just the beginning, but the push forward. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank everyone here at the table.
Thank you for that. It's taken too long. It's the problem, but that's a burden that I will take with me right through the end of my time in this seat. But the good news, Sterling, as you point out, it's taken a long time, but we're at the table and we're talking, and we've got bills that are being worked on and machined, and that's a good thing. I want to let, in a minute, both Dr. Slaughter and Janae bat clean up the respectively Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani of this discussion. But I wonder if I could go one after the other. Ask Francisco, representing the Veterans Chamber, and give my buddy Jeff Cantor a hug for me when you see him next. and Gurpreet, who's representing the Punjabi Chamber. I would love to get you guys in that order to just give us your reflections. And again, thank you both for your leadership.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, Joanne, as well, for your leadership and working closely and tirelessly with the Veterans Chamber. So I had talking points set forward that my team sent me last night, and I decided to listen to my abuelita. My abuelita is grandmother. And she said, habla del corazón y Dios te pone la gente que tienen que escuchar. Speak from the heart, and the good Lord will place the people when you need them, and here I am. So I'll do that. 1997, I was part of an elite tank unit called Black Horse. I was conducting a mission, and we were engaging another tank, an enemy tank. That tank, I was the gunner. There's 3 people in the tank: the driver, the gunner, and the tank commander. 2:30 in the morning, we had night vision goggles, I remember vividly, and I remember the tank commander telling me, engage, engage, go, and night vision goggles, you can't see depth. So prior to me firing on that tank, my tank crashed, and my face hit the turret, and I was incredibly injured. I was diagnosed, and I say this proudly now, with TBI, traumatic brain injury. I've conducted several surgeries. I suffer from PTSD, and I'm also a small business owner. But I'm not your average business owner, and that's why we created the Veterans Chamber, to support brave women like myself who have decided to grow their roots and raise their families here in the state of New Jersey, but that struggle daily like I do. Bill S. 3264 provides people like me in the chamber much needed resources for people like me who wake up and just have trouble reading and remembering things. And that's the fact, and that's as honest as I can be. We need your help, Governor. We need funding, because Jeff and I can't do it alone. We have brave men and women who call us daily wanting resources, and we tell them that there's a solution. This meeting today is one of those solutions. We know we have the support, but I just wanted to be frank and honest about the things that I go through, and hope that people here listen and support the battles and struggles that we go through every day as small business owners. And one other thing I want to urge is I've heard the assembly people here speak today about minority and women businesses, but veterans have always been left out of that conversation, of that title. When you present the bill, when you speak about minority veterans, veterans are Latinos, veterans are Black, veterans are women, veterans are representative of the LGBT community. We are all of it. So please include veterans in anything that you do moving forward. Thank you.
Very compelling from the heart. Your grandmother would be proud of you. And thank you for your service to our nation and all veterans. I think I could say with great conviction that any of the legislators working on this, and certainly in their teams and any of our teams, are going to have veterans in the middle of anything we do. So I promise you that. God bless you, and again, thank you for your service. Gurpreet, good morning, or
thank you, Governor.
good afternoon. We've been at it a while. Deep thanks for your being here.
We're very honored and blessed to have us, Stanley Stanley, with us, representing us in Edison and my hometown of East Brunswick, right? And he's been a great advocate for the OPI community. But I'm going to take a lead from Francisco a little bit, and to tell you from what I've heard today, and I think we have to think about what will happen if we do nothing. We heard 400 years, we heard 28 years. A whole generation in the last 28 years has been decimated when you really think about it. They have not had the opportunity that they should have been given. And shame on all of us if we do nothing. So I'm not in the legislature, but I really urge everyone in the legislature to take this seriously and let the next generation have a chance. Now maybe on the tail end, we can have some of the folks in the 28 years get something at the end of their careers. but think about the plumbers, think about attorneys, think about others that just didn't have the opportunity and who felt left out and really disillusioned. And that's really important. On behalf of the OPI community, I think we also have some work to do. In our chamber, we partnered with the EDA this year, and it's been a great experience. We've held about 5 seminars with them, and they've been so supportive of telling our members of all the opportunities that are out there. But I think one of the things that a lot of the communities are doing is that we're a little insular. We congregate in enclaves. Take my own Oak Tree Road, right? We as minority chambers have to do a much better job ourselves. And we have to demand action, not just expect it. Thank you.
You know, that last point, Gurpreet, first of all, let me make a more profound one. I think everybody joins me when I say this. Doing nothing is not going to happen. That ain't going to happen. So the question is, what do we do it? How fast? What's the sequence? What's part of it? Secondly, I think you make, which is another reason I wanted to bring everybody together today. It is very easy for all of us to go into our corners, however you define the corner. And part of the spirit of today is community. That while we may each have a particular perspective on this or that, there's a lot of common ground that we share. Great point. Francisco, and then we're going to wrap with Janae and then Dr. Slaughter.
Governor, to your point of community, I actually wear 2 hats today. I'm not only representing the Veterans Chamber, but I am representing New Jersey DBAC, which we created this year, and that is New Jersey Diverse Business Advisory Council. And that is a collective voice of some of the largest diverse chambers in the state of New Jersey. We also ask that through legislation you keep New Jersey DBAC top of mind. We know how important diversity is to you, and as a unit we'll come wearing that hat as well. So thank you.
Great. Thank you for mentioning that. And again, Gurpreet, thank you for your very compelling words. Janae, I want to give her a shout out. Hester Agadosi got this study started. Janae got it done. And so we will forever be grateful to you. Would love to give your final word from our side, and then would love to have Dr. Ronald Slaughter ring us out. Please.
Thank you, Governor, for your generous remarks and for your leadership. I think it's been
No, she's on. Hold on. I am the innovation governor. Hold on 1 second there. I have to move my abacus. Bear with me.
We'll do that again, Governor. I'll thank you again for your generous remarks.
It was a complete stand by me to make you say that twice.
We appreciate your leadership, and I think it's been acknowledged here today that commissioning the study was a courageous call to action. And we are all here to answer that call. We've been working with Treasury team. I think Hester really did give her baton to Candice Alfonso, who we've been great to work with and to help really bring this study across the line. When my mentor often will say, you cannot change what you do not assess, and you cannot assess what you do not measure. And the study was the assessment tool that we needed to equip us for these statutory and legal reforms. And so that is the work that we are doing now. And so we thank all of our legislative partners for taking the mantle from Senator Rice to bring us here. We thank you, the chambers who are representing far too many businesses that have been left behind in our state. But we are here to answer this call, Governor, that you've given us. We're working with our agencies. There are agency-specific initiatives that are needed. They have to be tailored to these laws will have to be tailored to the nuances of New Jersey law, specific to the findings, and our agencies have to work within their statutory and regulatory framework in order to do that. And so with workplace initiatives, where we are, as I think you said, Michelle, supporting inclusive employees so that we can have included programs, that is an important part of this work. And so that is part of what we are working across as a whole of government approach to help spur this effort.
Bless you. May I say you've got a way cool New Jersey pin, much cooler than the average one. I've said this many times. Thank you, Janae, for everything. And again, Candace, please give her a shout out in absentia. Hester as well in absentia, and the great Ron Rice. So I've said this many times, and I think my colleagues in the legislature, I suspect, would be in violent agreement with me. If government gets a complete A+ on everything we do, it's not enough. And we need community support and leadership. And frankly, there is no better example of that support and leadership than the faith community more broadly. And I would argue, in my humble opinion, there's no better example of a faith leader than the pastor at St. James AME Church in Newark, New Jersey. Honored to have him with us today, Reverend Dr. Ronald Slaughter.
Thank you so much, Governor. And to everyone that's gathered, there's an African proverb that says a person will never die unless you cease to speak their name. To hear Senator Ron Rice's name in this room in the way that it has been conveyed says to all of us that Ron Rice still lives among us. Unfortunately, small minority-owned businesses aren't sitting at computers. They don't have the personnel to sit there to look for applications or to look for the various things, that various opportunities. And there's one place that intersects with all of us in this room. That's the faith community. All of our business owners at some point visit a house of faith. And so I think it would be good for the house of faith to play a vital role in rolling out and disseminating the information that needs to get out concerning the various opportunities for minority businesses and businesses led by women. Assembly Wimberley are part of the same fraternity, which means we're part of the Divine Nine, which is another organization, another vehicle that could be used to disseminate information. I heard the Treasury Office talk about the many round tables, but it might be good to have one at a faith institution, a house of faith.
I love that idea.
So that we can help get this information out. Also, state agencies. I'm privileged to serve as member of the State Parole Board. And I remember very vividly when we were disseminating information about the opportunity to vote, that we were one of those vehicles that were used. And so we could be used also in the community to touch persons that the state government may not be able to touch. I think Ms. Robbins said it best, and I'd like to coin and finish and phrase it this way. It's hard to play the game when you don't know the rules, when you don't have access, when you don't know how to fill out the applications, when you don't see the opportunities. And so I think rolling out and disseminating the information is vitally important to making this work for all New Jersey, and of course, making New Jersey a fairer New Jersey.
Bless you. A question for you and Benji, given you share your fraternity. What about doing a fraternity specific, going to each of the Divine Nine and doing a virtual workshop? Do you think that could work?
Thanks. You start with Omega Psi Phi. I think it'd be great.
I think Vice President Harris would have a different opinion on where we should start. Do we all agree? Dr. Slaughter, great point also about doing something, to take an example, St. James or another house of worship. Great points. I think absent, we'll wrap in a second. I'd love to take a group picture, by the way, when we finish, if you all have time for that. But a couple of thoughts that I've got. First of all, thanks to the extraordinary legislative leaders, to the chamber heads who are great partners to our team, and to Dr. Slaughter as one of the preeminent faith leaders. Thank you, number one. Number two, there are a lot of really good bills out there. Let's work as fast as we can, not just for speed, but to get it right, but to get as many of these across the goal line as possible. And it feels to me like there are a couple that are just immediate no-brainers, like establishing the office, as an example. Third comment I want to make is there's stuff that we are doing, and I think more that we can do where we don't need any laws. It's at our disposal to be smart. And I think it's in the category, Shavonda, you used the word transparent, or Nellie did as well. Transparent, it's communication. as Dr. Slaughter said, you can't play the game if you don't know what the rules are. I heard that a number of times from both sides of the table. We don't need a bill for that. We might need a few bucks, but we don't need a bill for that. So, and then lastly, we say this a lot in our team. Is this a wedding or a marriage? And a wedding is a nice event, but then you got to go off and be married. And I've been at that for over 30 years. And the wedding was great, by the way. I wish you all could have been there. But the marriage is where it happens. That's where the work is. And this is, I know I speak with great passion on behalf of all of us. We're talking about a marriage. The word legacy was used, that we're going to do things that will last and far outstrip our time, whether in office, heading a chamber, in an administration, preaching in a church. We want this to be something that 50 years from now, that next generation of plumbers and guys that you were talking about, that they look back on this and say, you know what, they got it right.